Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular maybe try that again in a moment. Good afternoon. Let's try that again. My name is Ian Morrison. I'm the chair of the Electoral Area Services Committee, and I would like to welcome everyone to this regular meeting of Wednesday, February the 19th. Just before we get underway, this is my first test drive in the seat with some brand new technology. We have staff in the room to assist. I anticipate there will be numerous learning opportunities as we proceed through today. And I would like to start by recognizing that the CVRD is on the unceded territories of the Cowichan, Malahat, Subasat, Halalt, Penelakut, Staminas, Liaxin, Pakwichan, Diti Dot, and Pachi Dot nations, whose people have walked gently here for thousands of years. With that, we have with us today remotely alternate director Blaise Salmon from Area A. You want to give us a wave, Director Salmon? And I believe everyone else is present, if I count correctly. So with that, we have an agenda before us here today. So Mr. Robbins.
Good afternoon, everybody. Your first order of business is the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Do we have a mover? We do, and a seconder. Any discussion on the approval of the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
And a recommendation under Section 2 minutes that the minutes of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of February 5th, 2025 be adopted.
Moved. Do we have a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Next item, Mr. Robbins.
Item 4, for those following along on the agenda, public input period.
Would you like to read the preamble for that, please?
I most certainly will for you. The public input period is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on an agenda item before the committee considers the item. The public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes, where the speaker is welcome to comment on any items on the agenda up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that are or have been subject of a public hearing. Input from the community is valued and appreciated, and we simply request that input is presented in a friendly and respectful manner. And of course, your cooperation in maintaining a safe, respectful, and orderly environment is greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. With that, I'd like to welcome anyone in the gallery who would like to provide input to the committee today. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Hang on.
Everyone present.
I have to activate your mic, or you have to activate your microphone. There you go. Oh, try that again.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and everyone present, both in person and online. My name is Kim Bernard. I'm from Area B, Shawelican, Shawnigan Lake, Isquail, Siemna, Siea. It's with a sense of advocacy that I'm here to speak to R3, which is the Jack Fleetwood Trail Agreement, and I would like to offer some more background information that I'm privy to as a Rotary Club member, and also some history here, and to advocate for the entire trail, not just the portion that's described in today's report. So back in 1998, the Cooksylla River Park Society established a wooden trailhead stairway from the Cooksylla River Park to the Kinsall Trestle, which was named in honor of Jack Fleetwood, who lived from 1914 to 1998. He's a well-known Cowichan Valley historian, and his family also donated the lands for the Bright Angel Park. When the construction of the Jack Fleetwood Trail was started, it was intended to span a total of 14 kilometers and create a link from the Cooksylla River Provincial Park all the way to Bright Angel Park. During the Kinsale Trestle rehabilitation process, the eastern portion of the Jack Fleetwood Trail located near the trestle was revitalized, and that's the portion, I would add, that's described in the report. However, the western portion of the Jack Fleetwood Trail had become overgrown, the trailhead staircase damaged and rotten, and the Coxsila River Provincial Park had fallen victim to vandals. In October 2014, the South Cowichan Rotary Club partnered with BC Parks to revitalize the accessibility, visibility, and appeal of the trails along the river at Coxsila River Provincial Park. So many volunteers, including Rotarians and Friends, worked hard to rebuild the staircase, recut and clean the trails, and provide new signage, which I have a photo here that describes both portions of the Jack Fleetwood Trail on the sign. As a result, there are now 2 walking loops available from the park, the Jack Fleetwood Trail Loop to the east, Wild Deer Creek Trail Loop to the west, and the portion described in the report where hikers can travel the Jack Fleetwood Trail all the way to the trestle, and there's signs in place to mark the route along the way. In this website story that I helped prepare a few years back, it says that the South Cowichan Rotary Club was back in the spring to do winter cleanup. And so I thought this should be really relevant to today's report, that there's other collaborators and, in fact, the original scope of that trail. So I guess my ask today would be just to revisit the resolution and look at the whole trail and see if that could be included. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. I would like to ask if anyone online or anyone else in the gallery would like to provide input to committee members today before we consider future items in the agenda. Don't see anyone. If anyone online would like to provide input, you could raise your hand now, or I look to the gallery. I don't see anyone approaching the podium, so no hands online. Mr. Robbins, next item.
I'm going to move you along to C1, which is a grant and aid request in Electoral Area A, and there's a recommendation that you recommend to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area A, Mill Bay Malahat, in the amount of $1,000 be provided to the Francis Kelsey Dry Grad Committee to support the red carpet and dry grad celebration.
Alternate Director Salmon, would you like to move that? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. For information, everyone, the items from today will be proceeding to the board meeting on Wednesday, February 26, 2025. So with that, Mr. Robbins, next item.
Item 7 is just an information piece. Minutes from the Shawnigan Lake Community Parks Advisory Commission of January 30, 2025.
Any questions, thoughts, comments in regards to that item? Seeing none, next item, Mr.
Then
Robbins.
I'll move the committee to the first report, which is from the Development Services Division with regards to application number RZ22F01.
Thank you, Ms. DeBenna. Just before we get started, just so that everyone's clear on process here, we anticipate Ms. DeBenna's report. We will pose questions to DeBenna if committee has any questions. Following an exhaustive series of questions for Ms. DeBenna, we'll ask if the applicants have any information that they would like to provide in addition to the report provided by staff. I will poll committees members as to whether or not they have any questions for the applicants. And then once that's done, we will consider a resolution on this item. And again, that resolution will go through to the board on the 26th, or most likely go through to the board on the 26th. So with that, I would turn to Ms. DeBenna. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks. Okay, so this application is presented for a second time to the committee with referral responses, revised plan, and descriptions for on-site servicing. Referral responses are found in attachment C and have been summarized in the staff report. Just as a brief summary, the application proposes to redesignate the 5 subject properties from renewable resource forestry to rural residential in the official community plan, OCP, and rezone from F1 forest resource to a comprehensive development zone for the purpose of creating up to 40 bareland strata lots with the option to continue private camping or to construct a single detached dwelling and accessory buildings or structures per strata lot. The staff report provides a review of several OCP policies the application is not consistent with, and these include policies that direct new development within growth containment boundaries and areas adjacent to existing communities where servicing and transportation are most efficiently provided, as well policies that do not support subdivision in rural areas and that do not envision significant changes to existing land use for further subdivision until comprehensive planning has taken place. The proposal is inconsistent with the intent of the forestry designation to preserve resource lands by retaining large parcel sizes and limiting conversion to residential development. Specifically in the Electoral Area F local area plan, forestry lands are not considered a holding zone for other forms of development. So I think next slide, thanks. Yeah, thank you. So staff consider the current designation and zoning to be appropriate for the subject properties and are recommending the application be denied. However, an alternative recommendation has also been provided in the staff report. Thank you. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Ms. DeBenna. Turn to committee. Do we have any questions for staff? You have to press your button to get on the list.
Welcome, Director. Oh, now I.
Your mic is red. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was just curious I'm glad to see the staff recommendation. I can see that we have a similar development that actually went through on Shawnigan Lake, and it's a bad legacy. So I'm glad to see that staff feel like this is not the right use of the land. But I had a question about the docks being mentioned. And so that was interesting. I've never seen that before. And I guess I'm curious, so you can put a dock size in with the zoning, correct? And then who enforces that later if this was to come to fruition?
So through the chair to Director Acton. So if it's in a CVRD zoning bylaw, CVRD would be enforcing it. And yes, we can regulate the size of a dock. It's a structure.
Okay, but we just haven't seen we have seen it on boathouses on Shawnigan Lake, but not on docks. So it's an interesting thing for us to start thinking about. Thank you.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is this area considered a high wildfire hazard area?
Ms. DeBenna.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, to Director Nicholson. So it is not in Development Permit Area 5, which is our wildfire hazard, but I believe, like off the top of my head, the provincial mapping, or the fire mapping shows it as high risk, simply because it's heavily forested, or can be heavily forested, but it's also outside of a fire service area.
So we wouldn't have it as a DPA because it is forestry land, zone forestry, is that correct?
You know what, off the top of my head, for Development Permit Area 5, I know it's based off of mapping that we have, but I know that Development Permit Area 5 doesn't cover like remote forestry lands for the most part. Why that is, off the top of my head, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you on that, but you won't see, like halfway out to Dididat as being in DPA 5, you expect that like highly forested coniferous forest would be considered high risk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do I get off? I want to withdraw, sorry. Do I just-
Okay, you're gone. You're gone. Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Benna. Don't go very far. And now I would like to invite the applicants or their agents if they would like to provide any additional information or thank you very much. Welcome.
Welcome, good afternoon. My name's Cam Williams with Couch and Engineering Services, here on behalf of the applicant. As you can see, there's 5 different parcels. The intent of the applicants is to formalize their position within the land, so they can, keep a stakehold within their current position. The 40 Bearland strata comes from, there's 40 shareholders in the entire property. So, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Turn to committee. Any questions for the applicant? Go ahead.
Thank you,
Mike,
Chair.
go ahead.
To my understanding, this has maybe come before the board previously. It's because it's been an application that's been on the books, so to speak, for quite a while. Can you maybe, in your own words, just talk us through, how come, why weren't we able to get to a point where you guys could move forward the staff recommendation?
Well, I think the history, there was more of a, I think the term is bread loaf style of lots going all the way down from the road to the lake. The idea behind this application was we would cluster the units together on each fee simple lot, cluster them outside of the environmental areas, sensitive areas, and prevent, not have them sprawling all over the parcels. So that's my understanding. I wasn't involved in the previous one, but that's my understanding of the history of why this is different. So.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Williams? Seeing none, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You have to press your button so I can activate you.
I would like to move the staff recommendation. If I get a seconder, I'll speak to it.
It's been moved and seconded. Please proceed.
Yeah, this is a very detailed response by staff. It's pretty rare that we get very rare that we get to outright deny the application, and this just seems like it misses the mark on a whole bunch of fronts, and so very, very happy to move that recommendation.
Turn to, if you want to speak, you got to press the button.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that the First Nations, none of them are supportive of this, which I think is fairly indicative of a problem.
Looking around the room, looking online, seeing no further hands, I will call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Mr. Robbins, next item.
Which is a report from Utilities Division with regards to Honeymoon Bay Street Lighting Service Area Expansion Request Area F. If you'd like, I'll read out the recommendation for you.
Would you please?
That it be recommended to the board that the installation of additional street light at 10300 Swinburne Avenue as part of the Honeymoon Bay Street Lighting Service Area be approved.
We have a mover. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries, and that one too will go through to the meeting on the 26th. Mr. Robbins, next item.
R3 is now a report from the Parks and Trails Division with regards to the license agreement amendment with Island Timberlands Limited Partnership for the Jack Fleetwood Trail, Electoral Area B, Shawnigan Lake. And
It's been moved by the director for the area. It's been seconded. Is anyone needing staff input on this one, or are we ready to go ahead? Director Wilson, you gotta hit the button.
Going back to the public input part of there with an ask for an extension there. how much extra would that cost in terms of the license agreement if it could be implemented? And secondly, and this is more a question I'm not sure that Brian can answer, would that the present maintainers of that path be prepared to take the extra maintenance on? I can see it's funded by Area B, not a problem at all, but basically I just want to see what the situation might be. Thank you.
Mr. Farquhar, could you shed some light on Director Wilson's questions and this report?
Good afternoon, Chair, through to Director Wilson. So from what I understand about the great work of the past of the Rotary Club was a form of establishment of a trail that ran from Bright Angel Park all the way up to Coquihalla River Provincial Park through and passing the Kinsale Trestle. This is along the Coquihalla River, of which there are multiple private properties. So that's well beyond the bounds of the report before you today, which is just dealing with a renewal with Island Timberlands through Mosaic. So any sort of direction around looking into or expanding a trail network further downstream would be a whole other endeavor because it would have to involve other property owners who would have to be in agreement in the first place to wanting to have a public trail across their property. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farquhar. Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion, questions, thoughts, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. Again, that will be on the agenda for the board on the 26th. Mr. Robbins, next item.
I'm going to move you to R4, which is another report from Parks and Trails Division with regards to Wessex Ravine Park Upper Lower Village Connector Trail Project. There's a two-part recommendation before committee.
Are we expecting staff to present any information, or are we going off the report that's been published? Thank you. I'll go to the director for the area.
Thank you,
Red,
Chair.
you can talk.
Thank you, Chair. I would be prepared to make this motion, but should I have a seconder, I'd like to comment. Therefore, I move it be recommended to the board that prior to opening of the Wessex Park Ravine, the CVRD engage in a qualified environmental professional, or a QEP, to develop a long-term management action plan to guide the operation and use of the trails, stairs during the Pacific Great Blue Heron nesting season, and two, that the 2025 budget for Function 234 Area D Community Parks be amended to A, increase transfer from operating reserves by $45,000, B, increase consultants by $30,000, and C, increase contracts for services by $15,000.
Do we have a seconder for that? Moved and seconded.
And my only comment would be that I respectfully ask staff to expedite the recommended QEP as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. Moreover, the successful QEP should provide achievable and affordable action steps that are manageable for future generations of herons, humans, and CVRD staff as we continue to coexist within this natural forest ecosystem, as has been done over the past quite disruptive last 2 decades.
Thank you, Director Abbott. Director Acton. Let's try that again.
Thank you. This is just more of an opinion, I guess. Yeah, they have been coexisting, but when I saw that dollar amount, this seems like outrageously expensive to me for an environmental report. Anyway, seems like it's so. Hopefully, it's going to land somewhere more like $10,000 than $45,000. It seems kind of outrageous.
Thank you. We'll go to our vice chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a comment as well. Fully support of this for the director of the area. I'm just going to speak for just one moment in plain English. If we can't get a staircase built within 2 decades, I mean, what are we doing here? Let's get on with this.
Thank you, and I just maybe suggest caution in our remarks today. Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I will not be supporting this unless I can be assured that the staircase won't open until after September 15th, or until all the fledglings of this year have left the colony, and that we monitor everything that goes forward from the plan, because I think this is a high-risk venture, and I think I think we need to be responsible about how we go about doing this. I certainly would not want to be contributing to the loss of this colony of herons.
Thank you, Director Nicholson. Director Martman. Yeah, you did.
Say it's not you.
There we go. You're live.
Yeah, I echo, I echo Director Nicholson on this. You know, if you look back at the staff report that was highlighted in the background, staff recommended that this didn't go forward, and the board decided to do that. And so I think one of the things that strikes me is the Ministry of Environment's letter states some things that is quite positional, in that that the board did decide to go forward. We want to work on sort of finding the middle ground with the CVRD, and that's why they're looking for a QEP. But I think the letter also states, at least this is how I interpret it, that this is a very important colony, and they're not going to allow or going to permit any degradation to that colony. And so, I think we have to also be wise that, no matter what causes the degradation, if the staircase is in place, it would be probably held responsible. And so, I really feel for the director of the area. I think it's a very difficult thing. The money's spent, the stairs are there. The community wants to do the best thing to honor the colony, but at the same time, I just don't know where we're headed with this. It's complicated. I note there's a difference between what the Ministry of Environment letter says. They figure it's 20 meters. The letter, or the staff report, thinks it's 40 meters. In the end, I think the Ministry of Environment probably holds the upper hand on what they're going to decide as what is going to be required. So I guess I do have a question, though, through to staff, because they do say that this is going to take or change the work plan. And I'm curious what that changes in the work plan look like for other areas. Thank you.
Mr. Farquhar.
Good afternoon, Chair. Through to Director Martman. A good question. And at this stage, a lot will depend on ultimately the decision of the board to move forward with the recommendation that's been put forward, the priorities in terms of getting a consultant on board, and the work done by that environmental consultant that identifies the overall management plan approach to be taken, concurrent with how we find ways to open and manage the stairs in a fashion that benefits the community in terms of what the staircase purpose is for, but also, as noted, continues to not impact or otherwise disturb the heron colony. So it's a bit of an open question at this time in terms of what we are able to roll out in terms of getting the QEP on board, following the board's decision to move forward with this. And then depending on, as I said, what the management plan itself stipulates in terms of implementation requirements, how much staff time would be required to implement that, and how that lines up with other projects that we have on the plan this year to move forward with, given this would be a priority because we are dealing with a circumstance which is active.
Does that conclude your questions?
No, it leads to a second question, and I
Go
think,
ahead, follow up.
So, from a parks perspective, the Yellow Point Trail is something near and dear to my area, and so I think what I'm interpreting, and just correct me if I'm wrong, or correct me anyway, that you're not sure of the impact of it, but it could be impactful to the point where other projects, such as the Yellow Point Trail, could be moved back on the work plan.
That is a potential, yes, because this has now become a priority for the Parks and Trails Division to be responding on in terms of the letter from the ministry and the direction to move forward as outlined in the report with the recommendation that this committee is considering at the moment.
So this is the final comment, if I may, Chair, or I can come back if you like.
I would prefer to come back, and I'm going to emphasize again and plead that we all use an abundance of caution in our comments today. This is a very important issue for not just the CBRD, but the community and staff, and I would strongly urge that we be very focused in our remarks and consider that as we proceed. I'll go to, how did that get, I've got Director Abbott yet, and Director Abbott, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, fellow directors, for some thoughtful sentiments. Please remember that several, at least 2 very qualified QEPs have been already generated. There's a wealth of information, a wealth of study that has gone on. And during this study, there have been numerous human interventions, including a clear cutting to put in Cowichan Bay Estates, which saw the herons move and relocate. There's been the demolition of a cannery, fish processing plant, and the reconstruction of a brand new condominium complex on its footprint. There's been the installation of a water line exactly underneath the present staircase to service the condos. And finally, there was the construction of the staircase that now exists. Throughout all of that activity, the herons have flourished. They've, in fact, increased. And as people have mentioned, there are some discrepancies about the meterage distances. Taken to the nth degree, one could almost suggest that if this applies, you could almost ask Wessex subdivision to stop activity for several months. And as preposterous as that sounds, that's what we're asking of the community. And finally, people are using, scaling, navigating the connection from upper to lower, despite all of our efforts to keep them from going through the current connector. This was the best location to redirect funnel traffic that was happening, regardless of whether we had a physical structure. As recently as 6 months ago, you scaled it using a rope. You being the public that chose to go up and down it. So I do hope that as soon as practical, we can see human activity quietly working its way through that ravine so that the herons acclimatize to human activity, as they have on numerous occasions, as I've just described. Thank you.
Director Nicholson?
Oh, sorry.
I'm going in the order in which the list is on here. Okay, I have Director Acton, you've spoken already, have you not, on this item?
Yes.
Director Wilson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is more a question for staff, I think, here. There's already been mention of 2 QEP reports, and now we're going to have, and we're asking for another QEP report. So I'm kind of wondering how many more reports we need. And once we get this one, if there is conflict between one report and another, is the report only going to be used by the Parks Department, or is it then going to go for review in other departments such as planning and all the rest of it? How is this going to be used here?
Chair, through to Director Wilson, as noted in the staff report, the focus of the work would be developing a long-term management plan for the staircase and use. So that is the purpose for the work to be done, the primary purpose in developing that long-term management plan, which would likely involve some additional monitoring of the herons while that's being developed. So yes, there have been previously studies done, but this is a more focused effort on developing a long-term management plan for the operation of the staircase.
Okay, thank you.
Director Acton?
Thank you. So I just also like to add to Director Abbott's comments of people already using that area. So by building the staircase has actually funneled people to cross that territory in one spot instead of all over. I've seen people like using the vines to get down and like, so it's, I think, a lot better that the stairs are there. And I guess just like we all know this, any park project, sometimes things come up and it's in the queue. And I would hope that, we would support other directors in finishing their project. But if this doesn't get done, isn't the project finished anyway, or? Yeah, so if we really care about the herons, we kind of want a master plan. But what I would, it's too bad that, I know that there's large groups studying them, and, maybe there's opportunity for community involvement and using some of that data or reducing the costs on this. Leave it up to the director to the area, because he's clearly knows a lot more about it than I do. But, maybe there's an opportunity here to do a plan, get the community involved. You've got them as your watchdogs anyway. And as stated, I think we're making a bigger deal about this because it's our piece of the really large picture. And I think it's a good thing here. This is a good story, and then this report will help guide to keep it a good story. So I'm in support.
Seeing no other hands, we've had the resolution read out. I will call the question. All those in favor? We've had a request to read the resolution again, please. Mr. Robbins.
That it be recommended to the board that, one, that prior to the opening of the West 6 Ravine Park Upper Lower Village Connector Trail for public use, the CVRD engage a qualified environmental professional, a QEP, to develop a long-term management action plan to guide the operation and use of the trail stairs during the Pacific Great Blue Heron nesting season, and two, that the 2025 budget for Function 234 Area D Community Parks be amended to A, increase transfer from operating reserves of 45,000, B, increase consultants by 30,000, and C, increase contract for services by 15,000.
I have a final question.
Hang on. I think we had Director Nicholson first. Go ahead.
I remain opposed to this. I think that I think we should do this long-term management plan, but I think that this year we should not open the trail until the fall of 2025 at the minimum. But I also think in doing this management plan, it's going to be super important to work closely with the province and make sure that someone with expertise in great blue herons is part of the management plan development. Yeah.
Director Acton?
Thank you. My question is to staff. If this I guess I'm wondering if this actually not opening it is having actually possible negative effects because of people kind of trying to skirt the stairs and everything already. So would we essentially be better off just opening it sooner than later?
Mr. Farquhar?
Chair, through Director Acton, that would be the key reason for getting a QEP on board, to advise and assess and determine how best opening of the stairs could be done with respect to developing that long-term management plan. So we'd be relying on the experts to advise on what's happening there right now and how best to manage it in the interim towards getting the staircase open. So your point is well taken, but it would not be a decision of staff. We'd be bringing in the qualified experts to guide us on that.
Right. So I guess the long-term plan's confusing me then, because that sounds like short-term plan stuff, and I guess none of that was in the previous QEP assessments. Clearly I don't remember them.
Chair, no, there was the long-term management plan is really for basically how to operate the stairs forever, for as long as the stairs are there.
Right, but
from day one to day.
Oh, day one too.
From day one, yes.
Fair enough. Thank you.
If you want to be on the list, you got to press the button. Director Martman? And if we can, New questions, new information?
Yeah. So I think if I understand what, isn't the Ministry of Environment requiring this as this management plan, to be able to proceed with the use of the stairs?
Mr. Farquhar?
Chair, through the Director Martman, as noted in their letter where it was received by the CVRD, it's their recommendations.
And a follow-up, if I may?
Go ahead.
And I don't mind supporting the director for the area on this in terms of, changing their work plan, potentially changing the work plan to this is obviously it's a priority to get this right. I just concerned with the wording in number 1, because it seems to be that on engagement of the QEP, that at that point, the use of the stairs could start. And this is how I read this. It says, prior to the opening, you will engage a QEP. So once the QEP is engaged, it could be literally opened.
Mr. Farquhar, can you provide some clarification on that?
Chair, through Director Martman, absolutely, but that would be through the guidance of the QEP. The whole reason for engaging the QEP would be to assess the overall circumstances of the stairs and the status of where the herons are at in terms of their nesting behavior and activities. And as mentioned earlier, developing the long-term management plan does not necessitate keeping the stairs closed until that plan is completed. It would be through the guidance of the QEP as to how the stairs and when the stairs could be opened. So it would be a component of the work they're doing overall.
Okay.
Director Deck?
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to understand which option, A, B, or C, would be most, the one that the Environment Department or Ministry and what's the other one that was mentioned? Shoot. Sorry, what?
Water.
Yes, and which one would be the safest? Is it option B that says postpone it till pending completion of a long-term management plan?
Mr. Farquhar?
Chair, through to Director Deck, as noted in their letter of February 5th, they provide a number of options with their recommendations. And within that, they certainly provide their perspectives in terms of the various recommendations that they've made in their letter. So it's a range.
Yeah. So, may I ask another
Hang
question?
on. Go ahead.
So since it will ultimately be up to the Parks Department to decide, Parks and Trails, to decide how to proceed, would you follow those recommendations or decide on your own what to do?
Mr. Farquhar?
Chair, through Director Deck, first and foremost, we're looking for direction from the committee and the board in terms of the report before you. Engaging a qualified environmental professional would be then a reliance on their professional expertise and understanding and assessment of the overall circumstances that exist there to give their professional opinion and guidance on how the stairs and when the stairs should be opened.
Okay, thank you.
Director Nicholson? Oh, you're off the list somehow. Can you press your button again? Go ahead.
So, do I understand this correctly, that if the qualified environmental professional recommends that the trail only be open for the winter months when it's safe to do so, that we'll follow that?
Mr. Farquhar?
Chair, we would bring back recommendations from the QEP to the committee and the board for such direction. It would not be the decision of staff.
So, can I follow up? So, do I understand that we'll get this QEP report before it opens? Before the stairs open?
Mr. Farquhar.
Chair, as outlined in the report, we'd be looking through the QEP for guidance on opening of the stairs, not necessarily looking at their work providing an end report, because they could very well determine that the opening of the stairs could proceed prior to completion of such long-term plan, because they'd be working on the plan to present to the CVRD for the long-term operation of the stairs, not necessarily the opening of the stairs.
I'm just not comfortable with this.
I'm going to jump in here for a minute and just suggest that this was a fairly exhaustive report. I understand the director for the area has had numerous discussions with staff, and the nature of the recommendation before us is to come in line with the recommendations that have been presented to the park staff and to engage a qualified environmental professional to ensure that there are no missteps from this point forward. And I think that's the nature of the recommendation that's before us. So with that, I would, if there's any new lines of inquiry or thoughts in regards to what we have before us on the floor, I'll entertain those comments now. Director Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Question for staff. One of the questions that's been brought up by Director Martman is this project taking priority and possibly leading to the delays of other projects. Would that be a knock-on effect of all the projects which are in the line? And the reason I'm asking, obviously, I've got one that's been in the queue for 4 years and hopefully is going to be completed by this time next year. So is that other projects are going to be affected if there is priority given to this one?
Mr. Farquhar.
Chair, through Director Wilson, so this is definitely a priority because we have the staircase completed. We have a letter from the ministry. We're looking for direction on opening. However, as always, your Parks and Trails Division always endeavors to take on and accomplish all projects that are supported through the budgeting process. And certainly we will be endeavoring to keep on track as best as possible, all projects, but it's more just an awareness for the committee that when something like this comes up, it has a potential effect on our ability to complete projects overall. So it's just more of an awareness from the committee that if a lot of staff time ultimately becomes involved with this, there is the potential it could impact our ability to stay on track with other projects.
Not quite what I wanted to hear, but thank you.
You have to press the button if you want to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to be just a little bit more eloquent this go around. I just want to again reaffirm my support for the director of the area and just do a little navel gazing. This is an important project to the community, very important project. The director of the area stumped on this as a campaign election issue for him, and we've already it's come to committee and moved it forward. And again, I would just think about, nobody's denying that the herons aren't important. I think everybody here cares deeply about our communities and the environment, but to get on with the project and let people enjoy their community, I think, if I was sitting at home watching this, I would find that personally, I know we all have different opinions, I'd find this very frustrating. So just want to reaffirm my support for the director of the area.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I will call the question on the resolution that's been read twice. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? We have 3 opposed. The motion carries. Yes, Mr. Robbins?
I'm just going to move you on
Oh, move us on, please.
to R5, which is a report from the Inspections and Enforcement Division with regards to 2025 year-end building inspection additional information report. It's for your information, but staff are here to answer your questions on the report.
Mr. Brisky.
I am on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were some questions that arose after my presentation at a previous meeting. So we've circulated a little bit more information in the report, and I'm available for any questions pertaining to the report.
Well, I'll fire. Oh, there we go. Director Salmon, please, or alternate Director Salmon, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you, and nice to see everyone again. I had to resist jumping in on the Great Blue Herons. But the housing question. So I know this came up last time, which I wasn't here, but just is there, Mr. Brisky, is there like a broadly speaking, it looks to me like housing starts are down the last couple of years. Is that a trend that, am I right in identifying that trend? And do you see that changing?
Mr. Brisky.
Through the chair to Director Salmon, that does appear to be the current trend. You know, my experience in construction tells me that we sort of have these ebbs and flows throughout the decades. There is a lot of uncertainty in the global climate right now, so I can certainly understand developers having some apprehension and spending money and taking risks, but usually low times will spawn activity as time goes on.
Okay, thank you.
And I've got a question for Mr. Brisky, but I'll go to Director Nicholson first.
Oh, I just wanted to say I like this report. Thank you.
Cool.
And yeah, I think this is a great report, and my line of inquiry is sort of further to alternate Director Salmon in that it was noted in the last report that new housing starts are down, and there can be a number of factors: interest rates, uncertainty. I guess part of this is about with the number of new housing starts down and number of inspections. Is this, are you finding efficiencies and shortened times to get inspections done? Are we being more efficient given the volume is less, and are the people that are actually engaging the building department, are they seeing a faster turnaround time on applications and inspections and the like?
I think there we go. Sorry. Well, Chair, that's a difficult question to answer. You know, on one hand, certainly, you know, there may be less inspections or building permits being issued, but, you know, something not included in my report is with regard to some of the building bylaw enforcement work that we do. Some of those things are difficult and time consuming. Although building permits may be down, the 2024 edition of the BC Building Code brought a number of enhanced and stricter requirements that require us to, you know, broaden our requirements and critique our inspections and things like that. So, you know, I would certainly say that, you know, we're very busy, to say the least, but I don't know how to answer your question.
Fair enough, and I'm just maybe sort of looking into the future a little bit, and in the hopes of, you know, we've had some indication of perhaps 50 basis points lowering of the prime rate and the likes, and I'm just concerned that if the volume increases, are we going to be in a position to adequately respond to the increased business coming through the door? And good that you're busy, and just so we need to see these numbers come up somewhat in the next little while if we're going to meet any of the targets for our housing crisis.
What I would say in that respect, Mr. Chair, is that it might be a little bit more difficult for our staff to gain approvals on complicated properties. You know, if I'm trying to get a building permit on a property with a steep slope or an environmentally sensitive area, there's a lot of things we need to keep tabs on. But if a subdivision such as the third phase of Cowichan Estates comes forward, I mean, that's kind of teed up and really easy for us to manage.
Thank you. I'll go to Director Acton.
Thank you. Sorry, I keep looking for it, but I think it's the next report, but where it says about Bill 44, how many permits it has generated. Can we ask questions about that report? Oh, we're in the, it's in
go
this
ahead.
one? Okay. Sorry, I just can't find them, like searching both of them. I thought that was pretty low, and so I guess, I think I need clarity on, so I thought we had fixed the issue of the lot sizes. So for example, if you built the house and the carriage house, and Island Health would let you have a certain size and septic field and a well, but theirs requirement is less than ours. And I thought we had brought ours into the same as theirs. So this is a question for planning. Like, has that work been done, or is it?
I think that may be more in line with the next report.
Well, that's what I was asking. It's about the bill, it mentions Bill 44, but anyway, okay.
Do you want to answer that, or at least
Mr. Brisky, why don't you have a crack at it, and we'll bring in relief if we need it.
Sure. So through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Acton, I think, I mean, Ms. Pressman can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know we did a lot of work on our zoning even in advance of Bill 44. And you know, our zoning in a lot of areas is fairly generous and works in a lot of ways to permit these secondary dwellings and things like that. I think one bit of feedback that I heard from the public was, you know, as part of the Bill 44 thing and the providing secondary suites, the province was going to provide some grant money to people who were making those applications, but that evaporated quite quickly. So I think a lot of folks who were pursuing it were, you know, upset to find there wasn't a lot of those funds available for them. And, I gotta be careful here, Mr. Chair. Now, one thing that the ministers don't say when they go on the television and they speak about Bill 44 is they don't talk about the fine print in the rural areas with our stressed utilities and our, we got the letter from Cowichan Bay Improvement District. We know we have a bit of a sewer issue there as well. So in a lot of cases, our zoning might be there and these things might be available, but in a lot of cases, sometimes the utilities prevent that work from proceeding as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Pressman.
Through the chair to Director Acton, I think perhaps what you were referring to was with regards to unserviced lots. And previously in the zoning bylaw, in some of the zoning bylaws in Area B in particular, there was a minimum lot size to allow suites. And so that has been removed, but so that it could be on any lot size, provided that they have confirmation that septic servicing is sufficient, for instance. So like Mr. Ribisky mentioned, there's a lot of other factors that are in play as well with construction of new suites.
Yeah, maybe if we can't get into specifics, and I know that there's so many factors involved, whether, if someone's got an adequate water license for a well, and there's, lots of factors involved here. I will go to alternate director Salmon next, and then I've got two other speakers.
Yeah, thank you. So I thought it was interesting, the little paragraph in the report about owner-built applications, and it looks like about a quarter of them are submitted without a contractor or agent assistance. Is that, just maybe speak a little, is that numbers about the same as it always been, and is there a greater need for people to have a contractor helping them now to get through the process? And is that something we want to be monitoring? appreciated you having the info there.
Mr. Brisky.
Through the chair to Director Salmon, in all honesty, Director Salmon, I've never actually studied this information through our building permit data. This was a question that kind of arose after my previous presentation, and it's not something we'd contemplated previously. It's hard to put a finger on exactly what that means. Like, in a lot of times, a property owner might apply for the permit, and then once they have the permit, they hire a professional to carry out the work for them, and try to save some money on the permit, getting the permit. I think the question that might have been asked of us originally was perhaps with regard to the BC housing requirement for owner-builder homes. And that's just an exercise that just we wouldn't be able to complete and have accurate information on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Director McClinton.
Thank you, Chair. Just curious, have you received any anecdotal evidence? I know forget the exact name of it, but the early adoption of the 2029 was it the zero emissions BC code? What do you know what I'm speaking of? We adopted it as a board. Have you had any anecdotal evidence that that's slowed people down?
Mr. Brisky.
Through the chair to Director McClinton, not really. I think we, off the top of my head, I think we, through resolution, required zero carbon compliance summer of last year, and thus far we haven't had a ton of pushback on it, and it's part of our inspection routine. For the most part, I mean, the code does allow for, redundant and backup facilities like a generator or a barbecue or a small fireplace insert or something like that. And for the most part, people are happy with that.
That's great. Thank you.
Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is not a question, it's more of a commendation for Mr. Brisky. One thing I do enjoy is brevity and clarity. Thank you for everything that you're doing here. It's short, sweet, and it's to the point.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Robbins.
We're going to move you to R6, was the report from the Development Services Divisions with regards to 2024 year-end development services.
Ms. Pressman, welcome.
Thank you. So I didn't provide a PowerPoint either, but I do have a couple of charts in the report. And just overall, our total number of development applications in development services last year was 114, and that included 50 development permits, 21 development variance permits, 12 rezoning or OCP amendment applications, 5 ALR referrals, and 26 subdivision referrals. And we currently have 179 open applications because that includes some applications from previous years as well as this year. But we did approve 51 development permits last year and 12 development variance permits. Something that's not included in my report is that I did have a look at our average processing time for development permits, and it was typically between 1.5 to 3 months. Once we do get a complete application, it's typically, as long as it's not complicated or there are issues with the reports, then we are able to process them fairly quickly. And I have a breakdown in my report of applications by area as well. And I brought my overall master spreadsheet in case I have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Pressman. I'll just quickly jump in to say that thank you for the information on the average time for permits. I think that there's definitely interest in knowing what our developers and members of the public might expect with, and you used a very important word, complete application from that point forward. And I don't know if there's a way that you could embed some of the timeframes for the various permits into future reports. I thank you for what you brought to us today, but I think we're wanting to see where we can have movement and provide some certainty to people coming in the doors and needing to meet all of our requirements. So I thank you for that. I turn to committee. Any questions for Ms. Pressman on this report? Great report. Thank you very much.
you.
Mr. Robbins, next item.
We're going to move you to all the way down to item 11, question period.
Would you please read the preamble for the question period?
Absolutely. The question period is an opportunity to offer the public to ask a question regarding the business of the CVRD. The question period allows for an allotment of 15 minutes and is comprised of two parts. The first is reserved for questions directly related to agenda items. If there is time remaining, questions may be on a matter of public interest related to and in the CVRD jurisdiction. Each questioner is permitted to ask one question, plus one follow-up question related to the answer. The question must truly be a question, not a statement of opinion or speech. And like our public input period, we request that questions are presented in a friendly and respectful manner, and cooperation in maintaining a safe, respectful, and orderly environment is greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Ms. Bernard.
Mr. Chair, my question today is R3 going to the board next week? And would it be possible to have the name of the trail be amended to indicate it's the eastern portion of the Jack Fleetwood Trail, because the existing western portion, the loop I described within the Coxsila River Park to Burnt Bridge, is not included in the agreement. So would it be possible to change it to East Jack Fleetwood Trail?
I would inquire with staff following the meeting, and given that this is a legal document and permit, there may be requirements for specificity. So I'm sure staff have heard you, and we will make inquiries to what the appropriate name on the document should be.
And Mr. Chair, by way of follow-up, could you suggest how I would learn on behalf of my community how to advocate for the ongoing maintenance of the western portion, whether it falls within the master parks plan? I know our area director has advocated in numerous articles that it's the community that asks for these types of trails to be included and maintained. Thank you. That was a question.
Yeah.
How would I advocate?
And it's a good question, because one of the things that we have to be incredibly cautious about is the making public resources on private lands. And I don't know specificity of this, but
that was a misunderstanding. I'm sorry. That trail in the original founder's vision does not exist. The portion from the trestle to the Bright Angel Park, it doesn't exist. It was just part of the original vision because the founder was the donor of the Bright Angel Park lands, but the trail named after him does not connect to that in any way.
So could you repeat your question?
My question is, how would we advocate for the Western Loop and the maintenance, which I believe was done 10 years ago by the Rotary Club, to be included in the Master Parks plan as winter storms and that wreak havoc in that area? Thank you.
So I will have to take that question on advisement. We'll speak with the director for the area. There's so many factors that go into what where we go, where we maintain, and I think that from my lack of understanding of the specifics of this, your director's heard the question, and I will come back with an answer.
And it would be appropriate to include that in written correspondence to Legislative Services before the board meeting? I could send all that information along.
You can provide any information that you'd like to Legislative Services, and
Okay.
I will attempt to respond with specificity to the question that you posed today.
I'm really encouraged by this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to provide input or ask a question of the chair on today's proceedings or anything of a general nature? Seeing none, Mr. Robbins next.
A motion to go into closed session. A motion that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 3, Section 90, subsections as noted in accordance with each agenda item as published.
Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Does alternate Director Salmon stay on this WebEx or go to the next?
I'd ask that you close out and go to the other link, please.
And I would suggest that we begin the closed session at 2:55.